Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Morales here. We are looking and listening and watching to Sipping Off the Cuff. But before we go there, we're going to do a really short open bar with that gentleman out there.
Hi, I'm Eric Zandona.
Eric, if you don't know, he's not only one of our tasters, but he is also a founding member of the American Distilling Institute, ADI. I know it by the initials, so
Yeah.
even Tequila Aficionado is like it's TA, right? Which could get us in trouble sometimes, depending on how
I
YouTube
know.
feels. Depends on how the algorithm is feeling
Yeah.
these days. So Eric, first of all, it was funny because this is like beginning of February when we're doing this, and uh, tell everybody where you live because I'm in the San Gabriel Valley of Southern California, and you're out there where?
Yeah, I live in the Florida Panhandle in what's called the Emerald Coast.
Yeah.
It's very nice when you're on the beach. We're not on the beach because the beach is expensive. So
Yeah.
we're we're about 45 minutes from the beach and about 45 minutes from Alabama. So it's kind of right in
Wow.
the middle of the Panhandle.
Well, the funny thing was he texted me a picture, and then he posted it on
Oh yeah.
on Instagram. He was snowed in. I mean, you guys got like the worst snowstorm in 100 years, right? It was a crazy.
Yeah, that's like once in a generation snowfall here. So
So
it's pretty impressive.
he sends me a picture. His car is snowed under. The last time I was just telling him off camera, the last time I saw him, last time I saw snow like that, I was living in Albuquerque, and at that time, it was the worst snowstorm they had had in about 100 years, and this was like over 20 years ago now. Um, so other than you guys having a couple of snow days, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how long did it take before it melted? 2, 3 days?
It lasted for about 3 days probably. My younger son, basically the whole week of school was canceled because there are no snowplows here, right? They don't
Yeah,
salt
there's no
roads, right?
infrastructure for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the school buses were just like, if there's ice on the road, we're not driving. So the buses were canceled for the whole week. So that meant the whole school was
That
canceled.
sounds a bit, that sounds like, if it snows in San Diego, you're screwed. You're
Yeah,
not going anywhere for a week,
right.
but so that was very impressive. And if you haven't, if you don't follow Eric, you can follow him. It's Easy Drinking on Instagram. Go check out you'd be surprised, especially if you're not in the cold area, then you're not familiar with what
Yeah.
what it looks like when you have snow packed to the top of your car. You haven't lived
Yeah.
until your car is covered in snow.
And today, I think the high is supposed to be like 82. So the weather has turned right around.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have a kind of a sunny, gloomy day. It's kind of weird. We're expecting rain, which we could have used when we were having
Right.
the fires. Uh,
Right.
Beginning of January has been a mess for a lot of us, and so I wanted to catch up with Eric because I hadn't had him on. We haven't done any tastings in a while, and so tell me first of all. You mentioned that you are writing another tequila book. What's that going to be about? I'm interested.
Y
You got my interest.
yes. Yeah, so this is an exciting new project for me. So the new book that I'm going to do right now, we're tentatively going to be calling the Tequila Bible. So it's basically going to be a corollary to my first book, the Bourbon Bible. So it's going to have a very similar format. It'll have a section on, the history of tequila, how it's made, how to read a label, a big section on individual brands and expressions with tasting notes, and then at the back end, a section on classic cocktails with tequila. So that's basically going to be the format. And so,
Any of those tequilas you and I have done? I mean, I actually we don't do that many tequilas because I like to throw the kitchen sink at Eric.
yeah.
I throw him the
Yeah,
weirdest stuff.
I don't know if there's going to
I
be any that we've done that will probably, because I have to hit like a lot of the big name brands,
right, right.
So because, that I'm trying to hit like what's most like common in the market on the
Okay.
top level, and then I'm going to hit some like smaller brands that I know are really good. And so it's this is actually going to be, I think, more difficult to narrow down than the Bourbon Bible because when I wrote that in 2017, not very many brands had lots of expressions of bourbon. Today, like at that time, Maker's Mark had two, right? That was
Wow.
it. Now they have like four. But for tequila, almost every brand has a minimum of three expressions, right?
Right, right.
Blanco, Repo, and Añejo. Some have extra Añejo. Some have Cristalino. Some have all of them. Some have Rosado, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So some brands will have as many as like seven expressions. And so it's going to be challenging because I made my like big list and I'm like, okay, well, there's 350. So I got to pare this down. So,
And you're going
because
to
I'm
have to
not,
retaste all of that, or have you taken notes
yeah,
as you
yeah.
go along?
Some notes I have, but a lot of it I'm going to have to retaste because
Oh
it's
my
been a long
gosh.
time.
And
So,
then, in the last couple of years, we've seen the explosion of Cristalinos, which I think would be
yeah,
really interesting to include. That's
yeah.
me.
Oh, and
Um,
high proof is the
and
new
high
big
proof,
fad
that's
too.
the other one I
Yeah.
was going to get to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
that's the thing. Like forever, only Tapatio really had high proof, right? The 110.
yeah, the 110.
But now almost every brand is starting to include a high proof expression. So,
Okay, so and if you haven't gotten Eric's last book, that the Tequila Dictionary, which
hmm
is so this is going to be like dictionary. When are you going to have that tequila encyclopedia? Oh no, that name has
Well,
already been taken. Sorry, on
yeah.
social anyway.
So if it depends on how well it sells, so like the publisher that I work with also publishes the Wine Atlas and the World Atlas of Whiskey, something like that by David
Oh, okay.
Broom. So for them, if they see enough response, if there's a big enough market, then they're willing to spend money to publish a bigger book, like physically a bigger book. So we'll see. So I'm hopeful that this will do well. As you're well aware, tequila is continuing to grow in popularity here in the US. Um, let's hope this tariff thing doesn't get in the way, but
Yeah, yeah.
we'll leave that
D- d-
aside.
Let's
Um,
let's not go with the
but
politics side of it because this will go south really quickly, and I don't mean
yeah,
south
for
like
sure.
Panhandle South.
So yeah. So anyway, we're hopeful that this will be received well. And I have to finish the book by the end of July, and then the publisher will work on putting it all together. And I'm not sure when it'll either come out late in 2025 or early 2026, probably.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll have to keep an eye out for that. You can still get his Tequila Dictionary, which I had
hmm
him sign last time he and I were together. I had him sign my copy. You
Yeah.
can't have that, um, but it is for sale on eBay. No, 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 no.
Ah,
That's not true. So Eric, as you can tell, not only is this one of our tasters, he's just no slouch. Tell us about ADI. You guys I know ADI, American Distilling Institute, does a lot of social on LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, but lately you've been kind of leaking into the Instagram thing too. And are you currently soliciting for the yearly contest? Is that what's going on right now?
Yeah, so right now, as you said, we're in early February, so we're registrations open for our annual competition. That'll close the beginning of March, March 7th. And then at the end of March, we'll hold the competition itself, and then in early May, I believe, we'll announce the winners from this year's competition. So yeah,
Uh,
we've been posting a lot on LinkedIn and through ADI's various social media channels to try and encourage people to enter. So,
for years, people, a lot of, we get a lot of people that you do some consulting, I do consulting,
hmm
and we very often we get brands that enter these contests or they ask us which contests are the most, legit because there's so many of them and a lot of them are just they're a lot of them are just hardware producers. You may as well be Lowe's or Home Depot. Get a bag of
Right.
nails over there, and a flange on this side. It's but very often I tell people there really were only two. I mean, the largest one has always been the one in San Francisco.
Right.
And it's maybe, like many of these that start up, they have a great intention, but then, as the years go by, they just become this. They sound like a multi-level marketing thing. Like, everybody who wins is a double diamond, double platinum, double.
Right.
It sounds like a record label or something. But for years, I used to tell people, the BTI, the Beverage Tasting Institute,
Hmm.
for me was one of really legit, and they had some, it was never about the judges. It was always about the brands, and
Right.
it was almost secretive. It was like, before you knew it, the results were out. I was like, well, when did they even, and ADI, I think, is right there with them. And I'm not sure. I think BTI has been around longer, but ADI it really, and I what I like is you really solicit and use a lot of the smaller American made brands that are distilled, all over the US mainly.
Hmm.
You also take international entries, don't
Yeah, we get entries from all over. I mean, one of the fun ones that I like to talk about sometimes, we got a mare's milk spirit from Kazakhstan. So that
you?
was
Ooh,
fun.
ooh.
But we also get, tequilas and mezcals, and we get, rums from Central America, and and then of course craft spirits from the US is like the kind of bulk of what we get in terms of entries. Yeah, BTI, you're right, is good. Um, they are not set up as a traditional competition. What I mean by that is that they most competitions are like there's one registration period, samples come in, then all the judges come together, everything's judged kind of at one time.
Mhm.
They do like a revolving sort of thing where
Yeah, they do spirits
one
and then they do wine and then they do gins or something like, right?
Right. So like at one point they'll just do whiskey, and then like the next month they'll just do vodka, and the next month it'll just be gin. And then so each of those are kind of like running independently, and so they'll bring in different people. They're based in the Chicago area, so they bring in mostly judges from that surrounding area. And so somebody will come in for a couple of days and just taste vodka, and then, maybe they don't taste anything else for the rest of the year because they'll be using other people for gin and tequila and for whiskey and things like that. So it's a little bit different of a kind of model, whereas like ADI, San Francisco, IWSC over in London,
Hmm.
it's basically like everything gets entered at the same time, everything kind of gets judged at the same time, and then they make one awards announcement. So in that way, BTI is a little bit different, but they're very good at what they do. And one of the reasons I kind of got hooked into spirits was a book actually that BTI published years ago. It's out of
Oh,
print now, but it really helped, kind of open the door for me and learning what all these different styles of spirits were.
what's the name of the book?
It's something like The Buyer's Guide to Spirits, something like that. I picked it up
Okay.
in Barnes and Noble probably back in 1999. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it's written by Alan Dickey, who's a consultant in the spirits industry. And yeah, it's out of print now, but it was great. Each chapter had like a little brief section like overview. What is brandy? Here's it.
Yeah.
What are the major styles? And like really short, but really easy to kind of as a newbie, really easy to comprehend. And then they'd have a section of like, here's a whole long laundry list of brands with a really brief tasting note and a price point. That's now out of you
Oh
know
yeah, well, those price points don't exist
yeah,
anymore.
those prices don't exist anymore. But the tasting note was really helpful because like when I was just starting, I would read the tasting note and taste the spirit alongside it because I was just trying to put words into what I was tasting. Because
Uh-huh.
that's one of the things that's kind of a little bit challenging when you're first starting off is like, okay,
Figuring out the
what is this?
descriptors. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that kind of helped me get a sense of like, oh, when I'm tasting a vodka and there's this like mineral thing happening. Like how do people call that? Like sometimes they'll refer to as flinty or whetstone or there's a fancy word I can't remember for there's a specific word for the smell of the ground after it rains.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I know what, you and I have talked about that when we do tequilas. It smells as a matter of fact, as I'm glad you brought that up because Felipe and I we were tasting a rum out of northern Mexico that the reason that
Hmm.
he got that sample is because now I think they're available in the US, but because they were only UK only. So
Ah,
Felipe's
uh-huh.
our UK guy, so they were nice enough to get me a sample, and I forget what it was, but literally when we tasted the rum, you could smell the jungle. It tasted
Mm.
like wet, like rainforest.
Yeah, yeah.
It was delightful. Bacardi is the only rum, and I told Felipe that's the only that in Flor de Caña. When because
Right.
my folks were from Central America, so when my grandparents would visit us in L.A. or they'd come visit, they'd bring a bottle of Flor de Caña, and it was always the unaged because that was the cheapest one they could afford, right?
Right.
At the time. That was before it became, the big brand that it is now. And so tasting those things that come out of the craft rums and the corn whiskeys, the heirloom whiskeys that they're making now
Right.
in Oaxaca. My next question was going to be, when are you going to start writing the Oaxacan the Oaxacan Mezcal Bible? When is that coming out? Because
Yeah,
you spent a year in Oaxaca, right? I mean, you were there.
I I did. I did spend a year there. I got to meet a lot of great people, taste a lot of really great things. It's just, with books, it's a tricky business, because if you're self-publishing, you can write whatever you want, however long you want. Um, there's a great rum book called Modern Caribbean Rum, and it's giant. It's amazing. And Matt, I'm blanking on his last name. Um, he self-published it because no publisher would, you know,
Yeah.
publish a 600-page book on rum. There's just not a big enough market for that big of a book. So he's like, I love this. I'm in this. I'm going to put it out there, and I think it's worth the world having. And it's great. And if you're really into rum, like it's definitely something to look for. But yeah, so books, like the Mescal has there's some books out there that have done a good job, but like Mexican corn whiskey, that's way too niche. No
Yeah, that's
publisher is gonna
true.
want that's
Uh,
but my hope is like eventually I'd have to look, but like that World Atlas of Whiskey book, it could fit in something like that, where you're just like you have one like a page or two
yeah.
that covers that kind of thing.
When
But
you well,
yeah,
when you start, separating the categories by country, things like
yeah.
that. But so you know what? I think we need to get to some tastings. But Eric, thanks for. Oh, by the way, are you doing? Are you? I guess you'll be traveling in March, correct? Is that for ADI or is that just personal stuff?
I'm traveling twice in March. So I'm going to London to
Ooh.
for the World Drinks Awards in mid-March, and then the end of March I'm going to California for ADI's competition.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is that always in the same place at ADI or do you rotate locations?
Yeah, we keep the competition for ADI in the same place. It makes the logistics much more simple. We used to move around every year. It was a headache, and so eventually the previous director before I took over was like, we gotta stop doing this. This is a lot. And he was right.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so we've been in the same spot now for like 7, 8 years, a hotel in Northern California. The staff knows us. They know what we need. They know basically
How many rooms, things like that, right?
Yeah, and they know to basically kind of leave us alone and we'll handle most things, you know.
Leave them alone. They're drunk. They're not, but
Yeah.
no,
So
when
they've
you're,
been very accommodating.
yeah, when you do this for a living and the way Eric does it, yeah, you're professional. I don't think I've ever seen Eric even tipsy, and Eric has seen me like sloppy drunk. So I don't know. But I digress on that. Anyway, thanks for joining us on this little mini open bar. I love that. I love what you've done with the Zoom background back there. That's really
Oh,
good.
this is my office. This is the back.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. I'm just the reason I know that is because he turned around and plucked a bottle that was on the top shelf, and I go, well, you can't do that with a Zoom background.
yeah,
This is my
yeah,
real background. That's a
yeah,
Chinese calendar that somebody gave me, which I thought was really cool. Otherwise, it's
yeah,
just blank space. I like it. It's
yeah.
it's Chinese New Year's. It's the year of the wood snake. So whatever.
Okay.
But that's our open bar with Eric Zandona. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. Stick with us. We're going to go through some tastings that we probably should have caught up with in 2024, but we're adding them to the new ballot in 2025 for the Brands of Promise. If in fact they are going to be nominated, we don't know yet.
You got to watch to find out.
Got to watch to find out. So that's our take. Thank you, Eric, for joining us. Stick with us, folks, because we will return with the sipping off the cuffs that you're used to seeing. Okay, so thanks again. We'll talk with everybody soon. Bye.
Bye bye.